couple of artists lately. Last fall, I wanted to learn more about abstract art. I've done some abstract paintings in the past, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of following my intuition, my aesthetic, just having fun exploring paint, marks, etc. And so I Googled and landed on an artist who just her whole presence resonated with me. Her name is Louise Fletcher, and she's an English artist. And so just following her, she talked about an inspiration in her own work, an artist named Nicholas Wilton. Nicholas lives in California and he's an abstract artist. And so I just started following both of them, listening to their podcast every week, watching their YouTube videos, and just felt very inspired. I didn't know about intuitive art, but basically what it encourages us to do is to be still, get in touch with our feelings, and just make marks that express that. There's no right or wrong. There's no rhythm, or there's nothing to it other than expressing ourselves with paint or markers or pens, whatever tool we choose to make our marks with. That is just what we do. And in the process, we learn to choose our preferences, colors, what colors am I attracted to today? What energy do I have? Am I full of energy? Am I calm? Just becoming more in tune with myself. And this really goes hand in hand with all that I've been doing in my daily spiritual practice for the past 20 plus years in Al-Anon, becoming more focused on my own thoughts and feelings. Those of us who struggle with codependency, have lived in addictive systems, family systems, or structures, it's so easy for us to focus on the other person. What do they think? What do they feel? How can I wedge myself into meeting their expectations, seeking the approval of others? And so for the past 20 years, I've been working on myself to gain more self-confidence, becoming more aware of my own thoughts and feelings, expressing them. In 2016, I read Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and I started keeping my morning pages. And that has helped me be able to articulate my thoughts and feelings verbally on paper and then in conversation. So I think this next practice of intuitive painting is just a furtherance of that expression. This is with a medium that I just love, is painting. I'm not a musician. I cannot sing, or I was told I sing like a mouse. And so I've never really pursued singing musical instruments. I played flute, but that was not my passion. I did it. I enjoyed it. I'm grateful for that experience in my life. I wanted to be in the art room, but some kid in 6th grade teased me about my art. These are all obstacles that I've had to overcome in my own journey in life. And so anyway, had a painting instructor in my 30s who taught me how to mix paints, mix colors, see colors. And so since then, I have continually become more and more free to express myself through my art, through painting. So here I am today. In my journal keeping, I started keeping this journal in March of this year. The first one I did was this. It was a Saturday afternoon. The power was out. I was perched on a little chest of drawers here in my studio, looking out the gray window. The chest is red. And I just started making marks that I wasn't really looking at my environment, but I think my environment came out on the page. And so then the next page in this journal, I had driven to Huntsville for a meeting, and I was driving along Highway 72 at night on my way home. And so this is what I experienced on an emotional, intuitive level of the drive home. This is my dashboard, I think, and these are houses along the road. These are headlights of cars, just more of an impressionistic and emotional color statement. Once again, these are beginning pages. This is where I started on just my intuitive, abstract painting. Where I am and why I have it open to this page today, I've learned that in order to preserve this journal, pages can start sticking together using acrylic paints. Right now, they're not sticking, but they have stuck. I've freed them up a bit. But I have brushed on a coating of matte medium. And once again, I'm still learning materials. I don't know how matte medium compares with a matte varnish. I've used matte varnish to finish out my acrylic paintings before, but this Nick Wilton recommended using a matte medium on your page, and then once it dries, to use this Dorland's wax medium. It puts just a wax finish on the page to keep it from sticking. It preserves the color. These are not masterpieces. They're not intended to be masterpieces. This is my journal. These are my notes. This is to reflect where I am on any given day. And I've progressed in a lot of ways. I started another journal. I'll show you here in just a second. But anyway, these are just the marks. And I do want to keep them as a record of where I've been, what I was thinking. I remember this trip to Huntsville. I remember driving home on 72 because I've done an illustration of it. I've remembered it. I've journaled it. And so anyway, once you put the wax medium on, I put this on last night before I went to bed. I've let it dry overnight. And so the goal now is to then just rub it. I'm going to turn this light on. I don't know what it's going to do to my face. Lit things up a little bit better. Anyway, so I can see what I'm doing. That's my task light on my table. And so the wax put a dull finish on it. And I'm going to just rub it to get a little bit of a glossier finish to it to help the colors come out more. Once again, y'all, this is a journal. This is where I'm practicing marks. This is where practicing contrast of light and dark, sizes of shapes, something to make the page interesting, composition, to get the eye moving. Where do I want the viewer to focus? I was very primitive here, and I was having fun. And anyway, so this process of preserving, putting the wax on, it's a new step for me. I'm learning it, I'm practicing it. And then when I do paintings that I want to keep, maybe sell, frame, or whatever, I will have this technique to use on future artwork. I've always used just a matte varnish, but I'm going to experiment on some of my other wood panels. I'm going to experiment with applying this cold wax finish. It gives the effect of an oil painting feel to it, sort of luxurious. So anyway, that is what I'm working on today. I'm going to just show you here. This is the journal I started. I did a workshop with Nick Wilton earlier this summer. And where my first page during that workshop was this one. Ooh, and I just love it. His process is called bloom. And when a plant blooms, it's really thriving. And so that's where our art is going to thrive as an artist, as a creative being. I've loved doing still lifes. I've loved doing pet portraits. I've loved all of my art so far because it's brought me to this place. But I was doing a lot of copy work. I was copying the still life. That's an object over there, and I'm reproducing that on the page with my marks and my color choices, etc. But this art that I'm creating now is just for me, my feelings, my marks, my choices. Nobody else in the world has made a page like this. You'll never see this anyplace else in the world. And so I'm doing this process to develop a lot more originality in my artwork. Even if I do a still life, I think how I interpret it is going to be a more unique expression of me. So anyway, this was the last page I did in my original journal. I have more pages to fill in, and I know I'll come back to it. But then Nick recommended we set aside a journal strictly to begin with what he was teaching us in that workshop. And so this was my first page there. And I've already applied my matte medium. He recommends a gloss medium, but I had this matte medium on hand, so that's what I'm using. Gloss medium, matte medium. I think either one will work. And then I've done the wax finish on this one. And I love how it's making those little gold circles, those gold marks shine a bit. So this is the next page in that. This was in the workshop, and the idea, the word that we were focusing on. We were instructed to think about a childhood memory, our favorite childhood memory. And it was summertime blooming, and I was thinking about the mimosa blooms. And so I did this one, and I told about that there. So anyway, in the journal, I have waxed this one too, but I have not polished it. So that's what I'm going to work on next. These are my pages that I've done. This was our trip to the mountains. And so you can see when I look at where I was here, when I look at where I started and where I am now, I can see the progress. I can see the energy shift. I can see the confidence build. I can see the curiosity developing. What happens if I do this? What happens if I make that mark? And I'm recognizing some colors that I love. I love bold colors, but I'm learning to make more grays. I did some gray in here, but anyway, I'm learning the importance for contrast to include more grayed tones. So anyway, as I keep this journal and work on things, I will notice marks that I like that I want to put in my other paintings, larger paintings, not my journal. It's a learning tool. So anyway, that's where I am now. I hope to be back in here. This is Wednesday. I know I have a commitment earlier tomorrow morning. I may or may not be here on Thursday, but I'm set up to just pop in here on Friday, 4th of July. We'll see what happens. So thanks for watching.